Hold on tight, folks. Straight from Red Deer County, it's the Guillaume Clou Sans Tete experience. Your rugged, sharp, trusty headless nail is here to hammer home the truth.
Salut, mes amis, and howdy from the porch swing out here in Red Deer County, Alberta, on this fine September 27th, 2025. The day's winding down with the sun dipping low like a cowboy riding off into the sunset, painting the prairies in hues of orange and gold, while a gentle Chinook breeze rustles the last standing wheat stalks, carrying that earthy promise of winter not far behind. I've got my trusty mug steaming with a robust brew, roasted up a batch of them, Alberta broad beans from the garden, ground them fine with a hint of chicory root and dandelion for that deep caffeine-free flavor that hits like a warm handshake, no jitters from Ottawa's pricey imports that'd cost you an arm and a leg these days. Welcome to another episode of Prairie Pulse, where we cut through the liberal cow manure with straight talk sharper than a barbed wire fence. Tonight, we're diving into the Loonie, the Ledger, and the Long Trail. Chewing on Ottawa's books, the parliamentary budget officer's wake-up call on deficits and debt, and a deep dive into their growth projections that show how trade woes and sluggish numbers are hitting our pockets harder than a bad frost on harvest. And with the Liberals jawing about even more spending on shiny new projects, like catalyzin $500 billion in investments over 5 years, or doubling home construction to 500,000 units a year, this mess is only getting deeper, piling on deficits like snow in a blizzard while ignoring the PBO's red flags. So, don't tell your dim-witted friends, but let's get to the straight of it. Blending the big picture with the gritty details on where our economy's headed and how liberal big-spendin dreams are making it worse. Pull up a chair, friend, or a hay bale if that's what you got handy. Coffee's hot and the night's quiet. Good time to talk about something most folks only notice when it bites them in the backside. Ottawa's books. Not the storybooks with fairy tales about balanced budgets. The ledgers, the cold, hard numbers that show where our tax dollars are going and how deep the hole's getting. And the fella ringing the bell on those ledgers right now is the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the PBO, our farm accountant for the whole dang country, keeping an eye on the herd so we don't end up selling the ranch to pay the feed bill to foreign buyers. The real story is steadier and scarier in a different way, like watching your fence posts lean a little more each year, until one day the cattle are wandering free. It's about direction, and the PBO just laid it out in black and white in their latest Economic and Fiscal Outlook from this very month. Here's the straight of it, no sugarcoating. This year's deficit is pegged at about $51.7 billion, and next year it jumps to a whopping $68.5 billion. After that, even if nobody had shiny new programs, we're still stuck near $60 billion a year for a good while yet. That's not my guess or some back-of-the-napkin scribble. That's their baseline under current policy, assuming the Liberals, or whoever's in charge up there, keep spending like water through a busted irrigation pipe. But hold on, mes amis, the Liberals ain't stopping there. They're hollering about even more projects, like pouring nearly $130 billion into new measures over 4 years, including a 1% cut to the lowest tax bracket that sounds nice but adds to the red ink, or launching a new federal housing agency called Build Canada Homes to crank out nearly 500,000 homes a year, doubling construction rates over a decade. And get this, Their plans aiming to catalyze $500 billion in new investments over 5 years, leveraging public cash to draw in private bucks for everything from defense procurement agencies to recruiting 1,000 more RCMP officers and opening a new academy in Saskatoon. Sounds ambitious, but scratch my head. Coming on top of the PBO's already ballooning deficits, this is like adding fuel to a barn fire, pushing debt higher and interest payments through the roof while our growth sputters. What's pushing it all? Partly the world we're riding through. Trade frictions and tariffs have knocked down our growth track like a hailstorm, flattening crops. And that's where we dive deeper into them growth projections. Folks, because they paint a picture of an economy trudging along like a plow horse with a limp. For real GDP growth, the meat and potatoes of how fast we're expanding after inflation, the PBO's pegging 2025 at a measly 1.2%, down from their earlier 1.7% guess in March. That's subdued, barely keeping pace with population growth, like expecting a bumper crop and getting frostbit. 2026 ain't much better. 1.3%, shaved from 1.5%, averaging just 1.2% over them 2 years, with the back half of 2025 looking especially sluggish. But there's a rebound in 2027 at 1.8%, fueled by domestic spending and exports picking up as businesses adapt, then averaging 1.7% from 2028 to 2030, a hair above potential output of 1.6%, but still pokey if Ottawa keeps dragging on energy and trade. Why the cuts? Them trade headwinds, U.S. tariffs on our goods, our retaliatory shots phasing out by 2026 are delaying investments and exports. Out here in Alberta, this hits like a gut punch. Our oil exports to the U.S., over 90% of our crude gets squeezed, meaning lower royalties and fewer rigs in the Athabasca sands, echoing the Keystone XL fiasco that cost thousands of jobs in Fort McMurray. Our beef industry, Alberta's the capital, with plants like Cargill and High River processing millions, faces higher costs exporting south, hitting Lethbridge feedlots already tight on margins. Premier Danielle Smith's hollering right. We need Ottawa to fight these tariffs, not hobble our resources with red tape. Instead, the economy's 0.5% smaller by 2030, billions lost. Enough for hospitals or roads without begging China for farmland loans. Nominal GDP takes a $12.9 billion annual hit from 2025 to 2029, shortchanging our heritage fund from oil revenues, leaving less buffer for downturns like 2014's crash that emptied Calgary's offices. Now, debt to GDP, that number they promised would drift down, and it's rising from 41.7% to over 43%. Our saddle's heavier, while the horse tires. The real kicker is interest, climbing from $53.6 billion to $82.4 billion by 2030 to 31, eating 14 cents per revenue dollar. That's no bridges, no MRIs, no tax relief, just paying yesterday's bills. In Alberta, this means less transfers, more pressure carrying the load, not to mention higher rates on farm loans in Pincher Creek or mortgages in Edmonton. And with Liberals eyeing $130 billion more in spending, including tax cuts and housing booms that sound good but bloat the baseline, interest could chew even more, leaving less for real growth, like upgrading our pipelines or irrigating dry lands. A borrowing cap needs raising by 2026 to 27, maxing the credit line, sparking a showdown if conservatives demand cuts before approving more debt for liberal projects. What's this mean for the loonie? It's like your auction mart rep. Persistent deficits mark us riskier, leading to higher borrow rates and a softer currency. Imports cost more. John Deere parts, California fruit, hardware, and Red Deer exporters might cheer, but families feel it at the till or truck lot. Fiscal credibility keeps the loonie stout. Lose it, and we're paying more for fuel in Grand Prairie or fertilizer in Peace River. More liberal spending, that's jet fuel for a weaker dollar, jacking up costs while growth lags. Inflation's 1.9% in 2025, dipping to 1.6% in 2026. But tariffs push prices, higher groceries at co-op, fuel-eating truckers' profits in Edmonton. Unemployment at 7.1%, hanging high through 2025 before dropping to 5.6% by 2030. Too many idled in the patch like Trans Mountain, delays rippling to Calgary services, or Drumheller families scraping by. Smith's sovereignty could cut tape, creating jobs faster, but liberal projects might crowd out private investment here. Rates hold at 2.5% through 2025, up to 2.75% in 2026, but debt charges balloon, siphoning from growth like upgrading Highway 2 or Southern Irrigation. This outlook's a limp horse. Subdued growth from trade wars, slow rebound leaving us weaker. Liberal spending plans, they'll widen deficits, hike debt, and stifle growth further. $500 billion investments sound grand, but without trimming elsewhere, it's borrowing from tomorrow to pay for today. For Alberta, can't rely on Ottawa favoring green dreams over resources. Smith's right. Fight tariffs, streamline approvals for carbon capture, attract hydrogen tied to gas. If not, slower oil sands jobs, higher ag costs in Bois Valley, loonie buying less. Now ditch doom for solutions. Pick priorities, stick to them, trim $115 billion new measures, even if it means scaling back liberal housing or RCMP expansions. Time's cheap. Fix spending growth before interest bites harder. Grow the pie, faster approvals for pipelines, predictable trade, unclog ports, protect the anchor, time-bound plan to bend debt to GDP down. Three pastures, spending, revenue, growth. Rotational grazing for balance. Ottawa needs credible boring plan. Markets love it. No wagon breaks soon, but ruts deepen unless we change. PBO warns we demand mile markers. Trim what, when, measure how. This ain't spreadsheets. It's your paycheck's value, grocery prices, mortgage rates, loonie's strength. Honest books keep it stout. Slide, and it's a slow tax. That's my piece. Coffee's gone. Stars out. Coyotes tuning up. Tomorrow mend fence. Tonight remember. Stewardship's consistent. What do you reckon? Is this fiscal path a wreck, or can Alberta pull straight? Hit replies A. Trade woes killing us. B. Smith lead on growth. C. Your fixes. Spread this. Link PBO. Tweet MPS. Rally for strong economy. That's the pulse today. Keep boots dusty, heart true, ledgers tight. Clou Sans Tete signing off.
That's the pulse from the prairies today. Keep your boots dusty, your heart true, and your fight strong. May some me stand tall for Alberta's way. This Clou Sans Tete signing off so long.